that. He was a member who witnessed every single thing in that particular battle, alongside his aunt Sayyidah Zainab, Salamullah alayha, Kulthum as well, you know. So they were among the reporters that reported the incidents that took place, whether it was in reference to what was said, to what was witnessed. There is another person I mentioned yesterday in my last lecture at Peterborough. His name was Ad-Dahhak al-Mashriqi. This person came to Imam Hussein as Imam Hussein arrived in Karbala just to greet him. And then Imam Hussein extended to him the invitation to fight along Imam Hussein, salawatullahi wasalam alayh, which he did. He accepted. But funny enough, he had a condition against Imam Hussein, in the sense that he said to him, I will fight with you and along your side up until the last member of your companions die, and then I leave. Which was a very weird condition, you know, for someone to put. But Imam Hussein, despite that condition, he accepted, with the proviso that maybe Allah will give him tawfiq and he will change his mind. But he didn't. All right? And he actually withdrew from the battle. He came to Imam Hussein after the last companion died and said, I'm still on my condition and I want to go. And he left. He was also one of the reporters that reported what happened in Karbala and related the incident. And he was the one who actually reported that incident himself with Imam Hussein, and how he put that condition on Imam Hussein. So that's how the accuracy comes from. But now, are there other reports that are not accurate that happened in Karbala, for example? Yes. How do we verify them? We verify them by the virtue of what was authenticated by the Imam himself, or the Imams themselves. Like Imam Zain al-Abidin reported to Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Baqir would report to other Imams, and that's how the chronology came about in reference to what had taken place in the battlefield, and before and after. Yes.
Any other questions from the audience? Any written questions? So the question is, how do we deal with parents who clash with the children who want to go towards the religious route, but because of the parents, they cannot let go of their cultural beliefs?
That's it?
Yeah, so I think the question is, if the children want to go towards a religious route,
And the
but
parents,
they're clashing with the parents' views because the parents have strong cultural beliefs.
Okay. Now, in that regard, right from the outset, I should say that children should find a mean and a way to sit and talk to their parents. If the parents don't entertain that particular form of, you know, dialogue or talking with them, that should not be a cause for the children to let go of what they're doing. However, they should do it in a way where they should not create some sort of a collision between themselves and their parents. And in saying so, one of the most important things is that they should never lose respect to their parents. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was very clear in the Quran when He said, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. If your parents forces you to associate partners with me, do not obey them. However, you must accompany them and deal with them in a very respectful and accommodating way. So the question of respect should never be out of sight. It should always be practiced. And I think dialogue in that sense is the best way to go forward in terms of discussing these issues. That's point number one. If that does not reap any reward or does not give any fruition to the discussion, then perhaps a learned authority, a trustworthy, a respected person to the family can be sought after in talking to the parents if the problem escalates and it goes out of hand, in order to mediate the problem between children and parents. It should never, however, lead to a position where the children should disrespect their parents or find it as a mean or as a way to leave the household altogether, unless they are mature enough, they earn their living, and they find that their Islam or their religion is really at jeopardy of being wasted if they remain in that particular situation, then yes, perhaps action needs to be taken, because in that case, what kicks in is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which he says, "La ta'ata li makhluqin fi ma'siyat al-khaliq." There is no obedience to a created person when that person is disobeying the Creator. So yes, obedience to parents is within the boundaries of obeying Allah. But if anyone calls on you to disobey Allah, their obedience stops completely. They don't have that authority anymore. Yes. Of course, my answer is very limited in that particular scenario. The other things that we need to look at is that each and every situation has its own merits, has its own situation. So I think the answer could differ from one scenario to another depending on the elements of the situation at hand and what is going on in the family. Whether, for example, the clash is because of marriage, whether it is because of education, whether it's because, it depends on the situation at hand, and each and every scenario had to be dealt with accordingly. There's no one answer to all scenarios, as you know. So it depends on the situation. And that's why I said it would be very advisable to engage the services of a learned, respected, person that the parents can relate to or respect, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
It's a situation specific.
Absolutely, situation by situation specific. Yeah.
Because sometimes cultural beliefs, they can contradict religion, but sometimes they can
conform
to religion.
Absolutely.
So it's
Yeah.
a difficult
Like there's something, perhaps there is a misconception among our younger generation, is that culture is always in collision with religion, which is not so. Like, for example, if you look, for example, at the early Arab customs and traditions or culture, you would find that Islam actually did endorse some of these cultural practices. For example, there were a number of marriages that the Arabs pursued. One of them was the actual marriage that we follow in Islam now. So what Islam did is that it abrogated all the other practices and endorsed the one that we follow today, although it was an actual Arab custom that was followed in Arabia, such as, for example, the marriage of Abu Talib to Fatima bint Asad, the marriage of Rasulullah to Amina bint Wahab. It was by going to the family and asking for the girl's hand in marriage and offering a dowry and consent by the girl to the groom-to-be. So that is basically what the marriage in Islam is. So Islam endorsed that and abrogated everything else. Similarly is the case now. There are cultural practices that are perfectly accepted within the body of Islam, and it doesn't clash with the Islamic teaching. For example, can we say we have to uniform food and make it Islamic? How are you going to uniform food and make it Islamic? It's part of culture. I mean, the Indo-Pak love the masala. Lebanese can't stand it. You can't standardize, the eating habits, but you can't say this is Islamic and this is culture. Dress code. As long as the dress code conforms to the two general major components of what constitute an Islamic dress, and that is, it can't be transparent, it can't be tight. So is there something wrong with shalwa kameez? Can I call it not Islamic but cultural? No. So there are certain things that may conform to culture, but Islam also endorses them in that regard. Now, if we go outside that scope, where, for example, it is culturally accepted that in a wedding, other than relatives, I will allow my girl to dance, for example, my daughter. But no, but that clashes with Islam. Why? Because still there are na mahram, right? So culture does not kick in that regard. Sometimes parents use this against children. No, it's okay, it's your cousin's wedding. We'll turn a blind eye. But so I can't go to the disco, but I can go to my cousin's wedding and dance there. But in a nightclub, I can't. No, haram, this is guna. But this is guna, non-mahram, same thing, right? So why is the scenario different in this? And because now there is a vested interest in the parent because he wants to please his brother or sister. And he doesn't want the clash within the family. No, you rather please Allah and explain your situation and argue your situation in a wise, immaculate, acceptable way to your brother or sister, so you don't offend them. If you tell them, for example, if there is going to be dancing, I'm sorry, I can't be at the wedding, or I'll come, show my respect, give my salams or congratulations, and then withdraw. So that's how we can distinctly then make a separation between what is culture per se and what is religious per se. Yeah.
So, question is, what is a detailed response? I'm not sure how detailed you can be in the time that we have.
Sure.
What is a detailed response for a Sunni brother or sister who claim that Shias killed the Prophet?
Shias killed the Prophet? Really? So there are brothers in the Sunni school of thought who believe that Shias are the ones who killed the Prophet.
Yeah, because I was having a conversation with
Interesting.
in college.
Yes.
She said, I was explaining what Muharram is to us, and she said that she was the one that killed the Prophet and his family. I don't know. Alright, thank you. She was the one that killed the Prophet and his family, and I said no, because there was, I gave the point that at that time there was no Shia and Sunni,
Okay.
and when I didn't know what to do.
Well, to tell you the truth, this is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. I've never heard this. I mean, yes, maybe they blame us for killing Imam Hussein in inverted commas because the Kufans.
Yeah, the Prophet and their family, which regarding to Imam Hussein and his son, that's what she made him to me that they were still kill the Prophet and their family.
Well, in that context, I would say the best answer to this, and I don't think it needs to be detailed unless there is like an ensuing debate or conversation between the two parties, the very reply that Imam Hussein gave to the army of Umar ibn Sa'd, if the Imam salawatullahi wasalam alayh had the idea or entertained the idea that it is his followers that killed him, he would not have used the following phrase when he was speaking to the army of Umar ibn Sa'd and said to them, Ya Shi'ata Ali Abi Sufyan, O Shias of the followers of Abu Sufyan. So he specifically made it clear that his killers are the descendants of Abu Sufyan and his followers. So there is no question of Shias involved in that regard. It was a clear statement by the Imam salawatullah wasalam alayhi. And he said to them, Ya Shi'ata ala Abi Sufyan, in lam yakun lakum deen, if you don't have religion, all right, and you are Arabs as you state, وَكُنْتُمْ عُرُبًا كَمَا تَزْعُمُونَ فَارْجِعُوا إِلَىٰ أَحْسَابِكُمْ. So go back to your lineage, right? And at least stick to your principles as Arabs and do not go near my women folk because I am the one who's fighting you and you are fighting me. So leave your army away from my women folk. And then Shimr said, yes, indeed, you have a point. Fine, no problem. We will not go near your women, and ordered his battalion. He said, leave his women folk for as long as he's alive. Fight him, for he is indeed an equal to be fought. Right? So this is a plain, clear response to anyone that says that it is the Shia that killed Imam Hussein in that regard. Because he specifically said, O Shias of people and followers of Abu Sufyan. Okay? Now, if that sister, or anyone, and having said this, even if we feel the pain of such accusation, I think our methodology and principles should not change to anger against these people on the basis that we should not allow our value system to be compromised at the way others treat us. Rather, we should stick to our value system. Otherwise, what is the difference between my value system and my opponent's value system? Right? In that regard. And that was very highly manifested through the akhlaq and the demeanor of Imam Hussein in the battlefield itself. Like in the narrations that we have at hand, we all know that Imam Hussein, when he came, he had the upper hand over the Euphrates. Right? But at the first arrival of the first battalion, headed by Hur ibn Yazid al-Rayahi, the riwayah says that the horses and the horsemen that arrived in Karbala, the hooves of the horses were going up and down from the heat that they could not sustain standing on the plains of Karbala because they were so thirsty and it was so dry that Imam Hussein ordered his army to allow them access to the waterway. Although Imam Hussein knows that in few days he will be denied access to the very water that he granted access to his enemies. That shows that the battle of Karbala is not about authority. It's not about ego. It's about deen, religion. It's about principles. It's about values. Imam Hussein was not going to compromise his values on the basis that I will soon be mistreated and why should I then treat them in the way they mistreat me? No, we do not reciprocate mistreatment with mistreatment. And contrary to common misconception that the Quran speaks about an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Actually, this is not a Quranic injunction. The way Allah quoted an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is that Allah is saying the scriptures before you adopted that particular way of penal code. But in your penal code, وَإِن تَعْفُوا فَهُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. If you forgive, it's closer to piety that will take you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what we need to be, and you know what? We should set out towards the other side on the basis that they really are misinformed. They don't know any better, you know. So we should feel the compassion to draw them closer to the truth than just to rebut the argument at hand. And as I was speaking with our respected brother in the car just as we were coming, I said to him, you know, we should change our methodology of debate or methodology of arguing or methodology of discussion from proving a point and winning the debate to winning the heart even if I'm going to lose the debate. So it's better that I win, it is better I lose my ego in favor of the person I love than to lose the one I love in favor of my ego. Right? So then we can carry the message in a very better platform to the others. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience?
Sorry, was that detailed enough? Okay.
Any of the sisters like to take the mic to ask a question?
Put your hands down.
Okay, the best account of how this came about is that it started at the time of the second Khalifa. However, there were disputes reported much before that. You know? But the disputes that started before that were on the basis of what we call in Islam, in hadith literature as hadithul ahad. Hadithul ahad means that an incident that was reported by one or two companions. Okay? Now, when an incident is reported by one or two companions, it cannot be taken as law. It can be accepted in terms of acts of recommendation, not acts of obligation. What I'm trying to say, yani if a companion says, for example, from the Prophet, that the Prophet said this hadith in the virtue of praying extra namaz after dhuhr. Okay? Fine, that's not an obligation. It's not an obligation. It's a recommended act. But if one companion comes and says that, for example, the act of salah, one of the acts of salah, is that you must do 2 sajda. All right? Or he says 3 sajda, let's say for argument's sake. Now, because this is an act of salah, it's an act of worship, and it is reported only by one companion, it will be immediately dismissed. Because unanimously, it's been agreed upon that there are 2 sajda in salah. Now, how do we arrive at knowing that there are 2 sajda in salah, or how the Prophet performed salah? There is a hadith which is approved and agreed upon by all the Muslim denominations, all the Muslim school of thoughts, which the Prophet said, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray the way you have seen me pray. So the way you have seen me, accordingly, pray in the manner that I have prayed. Now, during the time of the Prophet, how do we know how the people prayed during the time of the Prophet? Now, I'm telling you all of this. I'm not giving you my opinion from the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt. No, I'm speaking about this, the general opinion of the Muslim Ummah and how they arrived at the closure of the hands or the folding of the hand as opposed to the releasing of the hands. So, from the earliest accounts that we have, is that we need to look first who was the first person to report from the other school of thought how the Prophet prayed. Okay, so in the Sunni school of thought, for example, we have 4 branches. We have Maliki, Hanafi, Shafi'i, and Hanbali being the last one. So what was the first Sunni school of thought formed after the Prophet? It was the Maliki school of thought, right? Followed by the Hanafi, which Abu Hanifa was contemporary to Malik, and then Abu Hanifa was contemporary to Shafi'i, and then Ahmad ibn Hanbal came last. Now, if you go to a book called Al-Muwatta, this book is like a Risala Amaliya, you know the Risala of the Maraja? It's like that book for the Maliki school of thought. Okay? Now, this Maliki Imam, his name is Malik ibn Anas, all right? When he came to verify how the Prophet prayed, he collected all the ahadith that talked about prayer. He was stuck when it came to the question whether the Prophet released his hand or folded his hand. Why he was stuck? Because all the ahadith that talks about the Prophet folding his hand came only from one companion. 1 or 2 companions only. So there is no unanimous agreement whether the Prophet released his hand or he folded his hand in regard to it. So what did he do? And he's the only Imam in the Sunni school of thought that came up with that idea. And it was a brilliant idea, by the way. A brilliant idea. He said, since I cannot agree with this ahadith because they've only been reported by one companion about the folding of the hand, how can I verify how the Prophet prayed? Let us see how did the people of Medina pray. Because they are the best witnesses to the Prophet. They lived with him, right? So how did the people of Medina pray? He found out that majority of the people in Medina at that time, and I'm talking what time? I'm talking about the year 80 after Hijrah. So very close to the Prophet time. Yani 20 years after the revolution of Imam Hussein salawatullahi wasalam alayhi. He observed that majority of the people of Medina were praying with their hands down. So he said, now I can't accept the single hadith that says the Prophet folded his hand because it's impossible. Because the majority of the people of Medina are praying with their hands down. So it must be the closer look or the closer way to the Prophet. Now, the ahadith that came through the second Khalifa endorsing the folding of the hands is that a group of people from the Roman Empire came once to visit Umar ibn al-Khattab to negotiate certain transactions, and they stood in front of him with their hands folded like this. So he liked the idea. So he said, this is a very respectful way of standing before. So he asked them, why do you do this? They said, because this is out of respect from us to our kings. So he said, then Allah is the King of Kings. He is more worthy of that respect. But when it comes to act of salah, It's not up to me to change it. Yani Allah knows better which form is more respectful to Him. If He wanted us to pray with our hands folded out of respect, He would have told the Prophet, pray with your hands folded out of... So that's where the dispute came. Now, what does Shafi'i say about the folding of hand? Shafi'i says you are at liberty. Since there are ahadith that shows that you can pray with your hands down, and we have the odd ahadith that says you can pray with your hands folded, then you are at liberty to pray, either folded or releasing your hands, right? Yes. 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 Out of respect to our kings. Yes. Do it with your hands. And that's one of the ideas and reasons why actually it happened. You know, and of course when you have an authority that endorses a particular act, normally the general public do not oppose the authority in that regard. You know. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if it comes to us, we don't need proof that the Prophet prayed with his hand down more than Ahlul Bayt, salamullah alayhi. Because we have the school of Ahlul Bayt, and the school of Ahlul Bayt says to us that the Prophet never prayed with his hand folded. He always prayed with his hand released by his side. Yes, pleasure.
We just have under 10 minutes to Salah, so I think we'll take a break there and just get ready for Salah, and then we'll begin the lecture following Salah. So please recite Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أحسنت.
We'll just get the room rearranged.
Yeah, no problem. Ya Allah. No problem. Many years ago. Like 2007 maybe.